there, Rhys. How are you doing tonight?
No one can say my name, don't worry. But yeah, it's Rhys. Yeah, I'm very good, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing perfect. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I do appreciate it. I mean, one of the big questions I had, the first one, of course, is what was the idea behind turning one of the most beloved children's characters of all time into a bloodthirsty slasher?
So yeah, I absolutely love horror. Like, I'm a big horror fan, and it's the genre I basically exclusively watch. And I kind of like wanted to do something completely different because I've seen so many like zombies and werewolves and ghost movies. And this idea came, like, when it came to me, I was like, it's so different, and it's on such a tangent compared to those typical kind of monsters and villains. I kind of got a twinkle in my eye, and I was like, I think there's a lot of potential here, and I think the concept's really, really strong and different and like a bit refreshing. So yeah, I kind of just said, okay, we're gonna do this. Like, and this is one of the like advantages with being a bit of a lower budget production is, or like making lower budget productions, is a lot of studios, they'll be a bit resistant to this because, you know, they're kind of putting millions of pounds at risk, whereas we haven't got that kind of resources behind us. However, we can be more free and we can take more risks and we can do different stuff to what they're doing. So it was a very risky project. We kind of co-financed it to get it going in the first place, and a lot of people were like very unsure about it at the start. Like, I remember when I was trying to get people cast for it, they thought it was just going to absolutely bomb. And, you know, they want to be a bit precious about what sort of concepts they go with because they want a classy CV. They want like grounded, kind of like elevated horror. Whereas I'm presenting to them Winnie the Pooh with a knife. But I found, so it was actually really hard to cast and crew this one, but then I got some people involved, and I was like really happy, and we just like started filming, and it just went really, really well. Now, when I was like early on directing this, I was like thinking about the vision. I thought, okay, there's two routes we can go down with this. I can either take it down a Chucky route, which I thought, you know, is what everyone's gonna like instinctively think it will be, you know, because Winnie the Pooh, he's like Chucky-ish size, and it's a bit like that Pinocchio's revenge movie. He's gonna be running around and he's gonna have a knife and he's gonna be stabbing people, and maybe he's got like he's the toy of some kid or so. But I thought, oh, it's like I've seen that before, and I thought, what if I make him massive and I make him like, and I take him down a slashery route, and I take him more down like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees kind of vibe. So yeah, and then I was like, okay, let's see if this is possible. I was trying to justify it. I was like, okay, if he's going to be massive and like more of like an actual bear size, then I'll make him like a half human, half bear, and that enables me to like give him hands. And then the hands are obviously like, you need that to like grip weapons and sledgehammers and stuff, and then that lends itself really well to horror. Whereas I was getting, when I said I want to make him big, I was getting suggestions from people saying, just make him a bear, like make him this big hairy big bear, and I was like, oh, I was thinking, no, it would look absolutely terrible. Like, you can imagine you've got you haven't got a lot of money to put behind this suit, and it would just look like, you've seen like some really bad werewolf films out there. I thought it's just going to turn out like that. So I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make him this weird hybrid creature. And then I was seeing, how can I put together a costume? I found this mask on Immortal Masks, and I was like, okay, that fits it perfectly. It's a yellow bear, and his hands, I was like, okay, they just need to be yellow basically. So they're only like marigold gloves. They're literally £1 marigold gloves, but the color from the face of the mask like fits perfectly. So, you know, no one really realizes unless you're listening to this. Yeah. So yeah, it was very that was kind of like the onset of directing it, and like the route I was taking it down. And then yeah, it just started blowing up once the stills started getting released online.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, it was about 8 months ago that the trailer and the first stills were released, and then it just turned into this, it just completely went viral. So could you imagine that, you know, if you could see yourself, say, 9 months ago, before you even released those stills, like that you would have been on this absolutely incredible journey to the point now where the film's getting released, it's nearly made $1 million in Mexico alone. Would you even think that was even possible?
No, when I knew it was a good concept, I thought, okay, this could make money, like it would be successful. and it might get a very small theatrical run, like in some countries, and then based on that, we'd be able to expand out afterwards and move it. But yeah, I'd be completely lying if I said I expected this. Like no one did. So now it's at an extent where, yeah, it's absolutely everywhere. And yeah, I don't think I'd believe it if I told myself like 9 months ago, even though it's going viral, it's going to be having a theatrical release in like the whole of South, Central, and Northern America. That's side of the world alone. It's releasing in like over 3,000 cinemas, and it's releasing in countries I didn't even know existed. So which is really fun and crazy. And yeah, I'm really excited that it's, you know, going so viral, because not just because it's my film, but I love seeing kind of new interesting horror kind of get rolling out. And I was so I'm really happy that Terrifier 2, for example, is doing as well as it is, because I loved it. I watched it at Fright Fest, and I remember coming out of it thinking this is like one of my favorite films of the year. Like I thought Damien Leone done so well with it. And then like there's some other experimental horror coming out, like, you know, like Skinamarink. I'm not too much of a fan of that, to be honest, but I like the fact that there's really different stuff now hitting the genre, and I'm hoping, you know, that carries on basically, and we get loads of new kind of villains, new exciting villains, rather than the 10th installment of a certain like typical kind of legends out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've created your own slasher
I hope
icon.
so.
I already know it's going to. We already know that it's good. This is going to be an absolute smash hit everywhere. I can't wait to see the movie. I mean, so you've briefly touched on it at the very start there. So what can we expect from Pooh and Piglet? I mean, from what you've described there, this is the real Pooh and Piglet. This isn't just a man in a costume. This is the real Winnie the Pooh, the real Piglet. But obviously, they've got very different goals in mind in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like, because that was one of the things I really wanted to do with this is a lot of people, they want you to go down this grounded route with it, and the only way to have this grounded in reality would have been to make them, you know, like just put masks on. It's just killers with masks on. But I was like, that's not what I want to do. Like, I think it's a bit boring. I thought I want this to actually be Winnie the Pooh and Piglet doing something, and like a lot of people seem to now be excited purely based on that, rather than it being, you know, the mask wearers. And what you can kind of expect from it is, I wanted the tone of the film, because the tone was really hard to settle on here, because you can dance, you know, when you've got like deadly serious films like Michael Myers, but this isn't Michael Myers, this is like, it's Winnie the Pooh. And I was thinking, if you went to the cinema and you buy a ticket to see a Winnie the Pooh horror movie, like what will you be expecting? And I thought personally, I'd expect it to be a bit silly and a bit fun. So I've kind of danced in between that. There are a lot of kind of scenes in this where I'm not going for it being just purely serious and horrifying. Like there's fun elements to it. Like I want people to be able to like laugh at points, because I love that in horrors. Like I love the campier side to them at points too. And yeah, that's what I wanted to instill in this.
Awesome. Well,
it's got like a satire vibe at points.
Yeah,
I'd say.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, so this is a slasher film, which, you know, this podcast is Slasher Street Podcast. We are, you know, the gorier, the better, the more kills, the better. So I'm super excited for this. So without giving too much away, how gory is this going to be? How over the top is this going to be? Is it going to be on the level of, like you said before, Terrifier 2? Is it going to be more of a Halloween? How would you describe where we are in terms of the gore and the kills?
I would say the main effort I put towards this film was the death scenes. Like I wanted to ensure that a lot of time was allocated to them when I was filming it, because, you know, that's what you guys and horror fans want, is the death. Like that's the cool part of it, not the talking. So I dedicated as much time as I could with the resources I had towards it, and I tried to be as kind of like innovative as I could, hence why, you know, and some of them, they're a bit strange. Like Winnie the Pooh in the car looks a bit strange, however he now does run over someone's head, so that's really cool and fun. And they're the sort of like deaths I wanted to bring into the film. And I've tried to put as much practical in there as I can for these death scenes, for like heads getting stamped on, people getting like run over and stuff, because it just looks more realistic and better. What I'm really hoping for is on the next one, I want to like up it even more. Like when Winnie 2 is starting to get made, me and my producer are talking about it, because I'm producing it as well. So we're chatting about what we want to do. He keeps on going, I want 100 deaths. And he's saying 100 deaths, but I'm like, I'm not sure how feasible 100 is, but I definitely want loads and loads and loads. And we want to go down like a heavy practical route with it and have lots of lots of slashing, stabbing, like tons and tons of blood. So I'm thinking of heads exploding, like really crazy.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've got so many plans going now, but from the first one, yeah, you can still expect a lot of that sort of stuff too. And I've tried to make it quite consistent throughout, so it's not just at the tail end of the movie. Because there's generally we get told a rule where it's like you have to have a death every 10 minutes or something cool happen every 10 minutes. And that's what we've tried to introduce here. Make sure it's active. There's a lot of cool stuff happening. And one of the other elements I wanted to ensure was you see a lot of Winnie the Pooh, because I loved, I love Halloween. But Halloween Ends, I didn't like not seeing much of Michael Myers. And I didn't like the fact that, this kind of like geekier boy went into a sewer and just beat him up and took the mask. Like, that's not what I want to see from him. Like, I want him to be this juggernaut, and I want him to be this like force you can't be stopped, who's slashing people, and he's got this eerie vibe to him. And I always had that in my mind here. Like, I don't want Pooh to be weak. Like, I want him to come across like almost unstoppable. And he's just in really crazy situations and killing lots of people. So as soon as you get to about the 30-minute mark in the film, I think it is, he's basically on screen non-stop till the end. So
fantastic.
he's in
That's
a lot
all music to my ears. So the movie has been released in Mexico. You had your big premiere in Mexico City last week, I think it was, and obviously it's an absolute smash hit. It's number 4 in the charts. How was your experience over there with the premiere? And how was it all gone down over there?
Yeah, they love it. So in Mexico and like Latin America, they're big horror fans, and it's very ingrained in their culture as well, like with Day of the Dead and stuff. So they're obsessed with horror. And when we first had this film, said we want it to have a theatrical release, they were one of the first territories to like jump on board with it and say, they want to take it, they want to do a full theatrical run for it, they're going to release it in all these places. That was one of the reasons why, because they came on board so quick, that they got the one of the first kind of premieres of it. And when we went over there to watch it was on the 26th of January. Yeah, it was like an amazing experience, because they put so much effort into it. They had people dressed up as Winnie the Pooh there, that people were cosplaying. They had all this set dress, and like they had more money I'd say put into the set dress than we did in the film. Like they went like full out with it. They had like cups with like Winnie the Pooh on it, and they were there. It was such a fun experience. Like, we love the guys over there. It was at Cinemex. And yeah, since it's released over there, you're right, the box office numbers have come out really strong, like more higher than what they expected. I think the opening weekend it had more than Terrifier 2, and then Terrifier 2's opening weekend, and relative to the other films out there, it was in between Megan and Avatar, which is mad considering what like the resources we had to make this. Now, obviously they're not like for like, because Megan, that wasn't Megan's opening weekend, so like you have to, or Avatar. If we looked at their opening weekend, we'd probably get blown out the water, but they're still relatively really healthy. And I'm now hoping, it will have this same sort of success worldwide in all the other territories, because if it does and it proves really successful, I think it will really help get more of these concepts moving, because I have a big slate of other ideas I want to get going, and people are more likely to basically invest into them and say, yeah, we'll give you the budget to actually go and make something with significantly more resources than you've had before, to actually get some really cool concepts and films going. And that already seems to be the case. Like, I'm starting to have like some studios talk to me, and they're opening up to these sort of ideas, even though they're risky and they're on a big tangent compared to what you normally do. they're wanting to do it. So
Awesome.
it seems,
Awesome.
yeah. So I've got some meetings set up in LA.
There you go. Yeah, doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So one thing I was very curious about, obviously, this is Winnie the Pooh. It's one of the most beloved characters of all time. Me and my family took my little girl to Disneyland Paris in July. She met Winnie the Pooh. It was all lovely. Did you run into any issues with the Walt Disney Company? Because obviously, Pooh's a big part of their whole company, really, and the Disney parks and the programming on TV. So did you come up with any issues from them, or were they just like, yeah, just off you go?
So yeah, basically with Disney, we tried to make sure that with the concept we were coming up with, that it was so, we didn't want to get near their IP and their copyright, because they're so like, it's so non-horror anyway, and that wasn't my intention, to kind of draw the line between us, or like the concept we're coming up with, and Disney's one. I made sure that the only thing I used as a reference point for this film was the 1926 book, and whatever was in there is what I kind of extrapolated off of to come up with this like horror adaptation of it, and I purposely was trying to go as far away from Disney as I can, so that the two ideas don't get muddled up. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, yeah, they're probably sitting there thinking, "Oh my god!" I mean, one day we might see your version of Pooh running around the park. Maybe Halloween Horror Nights. Now that would be interesting if someone like Universal came to you and was like, "We'll use your Pooh for Halloween Horror Nights," while Disney's Pooh is running around the Magic Kingdom. That would be hilarious.
Yeah, but it's so cool to see these different adaptations of it.
Absolutely.
Like that. Now it's in the public domain, is like there can be loads of different versions, of all of these other characters as well. So yeah, there's nice ones and there's also terrifying ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, it's going to be a big hit. So how can people see the movie, Rhys? Because it's coming out, I believe, in a week's time in the UK and the US and worldwide. So is that nationwide? Can everyone just go and see that at their local cinema? How can people see the movie?
So basically the 15th of February is like the big date for us. It's getting a release practically worldwide at that point. And but one of the big territories is the US. So you guys are going to be having it on the 15th, and after it, basically there's like 1,600 screens, I think, or cinemas, which are going to be showing it. So there should be one near almost everyone. Then after the 15th, the number of cinemas reduced down a bit, and it goes down to 16th it goes down from the 16th to the 23rd to about half of that number, I think, is what they're predicting at the moment. But if you go to Fathom Events, they have all of the cinemas and the screenings listed for it. And if you're outside of the US, you're most likely having a release on the 15th of February. But if you're not, because some territories have it kind of put out a later date, that will probably be kind of maybe getting announced soon. So like the UK is doing it on the 10th of March, but some territories are doing it even later. Like I think Japan are currently scheduled in like June or so.
Yeah, well, that's also on the premise that that's what it is as of now. As you said before about Terrifier 2, that can change. Like that could get extended each week, and I'm sure these cinemas are going to be full up. Like this is one of those movies that I think there's people in my work who don't like horror, but they know about this film. Like, and I told them about this today. They were like, "Oh, I can't wait to see Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey." Like,
yeah, well, I hope so, because it's stuff like that which will help it kind of like do well and expand, and then more of these concepts come out there. So because it's like the results which dictate the interest from bigger studios and bigger people, and make them want to do concepts like the similar kind of concepts, like like Five Nights at Freddy has now begun filming. I've heard rumors there's a Barney horror film coming out at some point, which I love to hear. Like I'm excited for both of them, and I'm happy they're now going, and we get to see them.
Yeah, I think I saw that. It was like Barney is your friend until he wasn't. I can't wait for it. I can't wait for it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
just one last question, Rhys. After this Blood and Honey journey is over, what's next for you? Like, what? I think you're doing a Peter Pan horror film, and then potentially Blood and Honey 2. So is that your main focus after this one?
So yeah, we have a bit of like, we're trying to build out a bit of a universe of these sort of retellings, because there's so much potential in this, and it's not, you know, like it's not just Disney stuff, or like that we're kind of drawing or going back to their roots and drawing inspiration from them. There's so many others. There's so many folklores. There's like nursery rhymes. There's loads of different adaptations you can take. Now, I'm being a bit careful about what I kind of jump onto directing next. So even though like Bambi and Blood and Honey 2 and Peter Pan are going to be getting made, and I'm going to be involved in producing them to help them be at a level I think they're good with, I'm still kind of unsure exactly what my next project's going to be just yet, just because there's lots of different talks which are happening now. Like I was saying, some studios are actually starting to take interest. We had someone yesterday have an interview of us and say they'll, if we want, they potentially would put like 500k or $1 million into a film. Just tell them the concept. Now, I don't know how sometimes people just say this stuff. It happens a lot in film. They go, yeah, I've got the money, I can get this moving, and then suddenly when you try and get it moving, they can't. But there's some people who I know are very, very legitimate and like big studios who are starting to say they want to do something like this, which I'm really hopeful for. And if that happens, then that will probably be one of my next moves, really, just because it will be a much bigger budget and I know I can just do something really well. And my next film is quite important to make sure it's as good as I want it to be.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Rhys, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I thoroughly appreciate your time, and like I say, for coming on the show. It's a big. You were one of the main guys that I wanted to get on when I've started getting guests on the podcast, and I just want to wish you the very best of luck with Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, everything that you do after that, and I can't wait. As soon as it's out in the UK, I'll be there, front row. Well, maybe back
thanks
row,
so much.
I'll be there. I'll be the first screening near me. So yeah, can't wait to see it, and best of luck with everything.
Oh, thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, Rhys. Thank you.
Thanks.